I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
That was the bottom.
And you can thank me for covering your astro.
Leading out, leading out,
Jesus.
Black Moon Melts and Scorpio. We're talking fears, phobias, fallouts, and fuckouts because we've had them all.
What did you just say?
The open. Welcome to Reading Out Loud, the shift show that talks all things spiritual, which includes fear. I'm psychic astrologer Christopher Witecki. It says a serious joy.
And I'm Scott Cruz, psychic medium and mentor with scottcruzpm.com. It's been an interesting day of tech, isn't it?
Yes, that's why I'm going to say in the script, thank you to all our viewers who continue to watch us and support us. Go on.
He got that from ChatGPT. You put that in there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I need help with the script. Now it's your line.
So yeah, no, thank you. I just want to thank you everybody for watching. But we're talking about fears, phobias, and freakouts today. So I figured it would be like a nice topic because we all have so many different irrational fears and where are they coming from? And what's the difference between if it's a fear, is it intuition, is it psychic premonition? What is it? We'll definitely get into that. And so, but I think we're going to play a game called Truth Tingles or False Fear. I think you're going to quiz me on this, right? Is that what we're doing next?
Let's see. Let's get into it. A lot of us people in the collective have fears about certain things. A lot are put into our news cycle, otherwise known as fear porn. So, Scott, let's do a vibe check. False or fear, truth tingles game.
Right. That's what we're saying, right? So, so you'll shoot off some things to me, right?
For each of these topics, try to go into your psychic side. In each of these topics, please check your vibes for either if it's a false fear or a truth tingles. Those are our two options.
A false fear or truth tingles. Let's see. Okay, let's do it.
Cue music. Will tariffs destroy the economy?
It's a truth tingles and a false fear. So I think it's a yes, but it will eventually. So that's a double whammy there.
That's a good psychic right there. Will Trump usher in World War III?
It's a truth tingles, but again, the same thing. I feel like there's attempts to such, but I don't think it could be successful.
So you think there's two timelines, one with the World War III and one without?
Well, I think that there may be attempts to do so based on certain choices and decisions that are being made, but it would not end up going there. You know what I'm saying? So there could be attempts to do something, but it doesn't really pan out. I feel there's attempts that could potentially cause that, but I feel like in our collective that we're on now timeline, it won't render.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a possible outcome if we choose to take it. Basically.
But we're not. We're not going to take it.
Okay.
We're not going to.
Okay. That's high resolution psychic right there.
HD 5K.
Do Americans need to fear China?
Truth tingles. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's so much. They're advanced in their, in their technology. They're enhanced so many different ways that we do need to be very much not so much in fear of, but aware of. So I say we always should be able to, especially that communism. They're really HD in their communism.
Those are all coming up psychically, or just listed in your head?
No, that's what I feel. I've always felt my thoughts are my feelings. They're synonymous.
Oh, cool. Do Americans need to fear China? Oh, sorry. Do we need to fear Chinese food? No, I'm kidding. Will women lose their rights like A Handmaid's Tale?
That's a false fear. No, I feel a huge. I've always felt a huge, rising in female empowerment, especially divine feminine. So we've been seeing a great rising divine feminine, even within the men themselves. So no, I don't feel that. I think there's gonna be more balance actually between the genders and also the essences.
Astrology says that too. Will AI destroy us?
Well, who's us? I mean, who's the people we're talking about? So that's a truth tingles. Now, I say this because I feel like it's already destroying a lot of people. There's so many things we don't know. Like I see friends of mine or people I've known that are acquaintances that are actually putting out albums that's AI generated. Like they're not, you know what I mean? So in a sense, it won't destroy Earth, but it's going to destroy a huge population of people that are, disconnected already and create more of that kind of disconnection. So there's a yes, no, but I think for spiritual people, we talked about this because for spiritual people, it's going to enhance us. It's going to really push us forward and let us be more creative and insightful and less of the mundane.
But your music career is going out of business.
Is that music is going well? I mean, it's really needs an overhaul, the music industry,
Yeah.
yeah, because there's AI artists. It's funny, and I hate to get off topic, but I just want to say this because it's on topic. But I've noticed like 5-6 years ago, I said this sounds like it's like robotic, like it's a robot singing. People didn't understand what I was talking about because AI music wasn't out then. And I feel like what if they're creating these robotic artists and they're all over the place saturating and they're saving money because they're not paying artists, and now I'm realizing I was right about that. So a little bit of a truth tingles of the past.
Yeah, every time we've been going to Fiverr to purchase little things for fun stuff, and quite often it's a AI singer.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. All right, then the final question for today: what about the robots? Will they destroy us?
I think it's a false fear. I think, and the way people are thinking about like robots taking over everything and destroying Earth, I think that's a false fear. We're not on that timeline, but we need to be in fear about that so we don't know how to regulate. So I think a lot of people, those of us who are conscious enough and spiritual enough, we're able to regulate these things. So no, because I think those of us who are working, the light workers, will stop that from happening.
We'll be superheroes. All right. Well,
We
good
are.
job, Scott. I didn't keep track of how many you got right because I don't know. But,
Is there right or wrong? It's a prediction, so yeah, you can't tell.
yeah. So now it's time to throw to your commercial.
Well, what is the commercial? Oh, tomorrow's live show for me. Every Thursday, as you know, I do my live show, and tomorrow's topic is unmasking God. I was so inspired, this past week to get into like the different dynamics of what God is, and separating what that means with religion, philosophy, and kind of what is the fundamental aspect of God. And so I'm talking about that tomorrow, as well as doing my live readings tomorrow as well. But it's every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. You come join me. And if you're more of a private person and want to do a private reading, scottcruzpm.com. I do offer sessions there. I just opened up June, so I'm booking for June now. So
Wow, it could be
I think we
crazy
could put
knowing
up a little
astrology.
graphic there too.
So now it's time to go to our portion where we talk about what's going on today. This has to do with
Wait,
the
you said
report for the
what's crazy with astrology? What did you say?
Well, no, now we talk about what's going on in the world with using our superpowers. This is
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
do your, yeah. Go ahead. So what's happening? I mean, for us, it's been a hell of a week. I mean, for me, it's been a hell of a week.
Yeah.
I mean, the energy. I think our last show was in the hotel in Nashville, but just the first half of the week leading up to our show was just really tough. I mean, the sun conjuncting Uranus, like I said before the show, knocked
Right.
out all of our sound right before the show. So I've had a lot of weird technical Mercury retrograde kind of stuff. But what have you seen and sensed?
It's funny because I've been speaking personally for the past week or two because of what I've been experiencing. I've noticed that a trend with my clients. I've taken some downtime because I was like burnout, but also now I'm starting to feel like I'm getting my energy back, but I'm just like, I want to do something new, something different, something like a change. So, and I'm starting to see that with a lot of my clients too. So, psychically, I really feel like moving forward, there is going to be a desire for a new expression, a desire to express even the things that you're doing now differently. So that's going to bring a different found voice, a different found perspective for you. So I really feel like do not dismiss these ideas. Don't dismiss these urges. Follow them, put them in motion. It can be chaotic if you don't, or if you don't have direction. If you're just kind of like throwing shit at a wall, see if it sticks, of course, that might bring some chaos because this has a potential in the next few weeks for things to be very chaotic too. But if you have direction, you could push it and your intuition will guide you to understand how to really express it. So yeah, I feel like a newfound energy, newfound expression, perspective, and move it forward.
Yeah, astrology would say the same. I mean, that newfound energy, I've coined our new thoughtware. And I felt my perspective change right away. The new moon that we had last week at 6 degrees, was it that last week or this week? This week at 6 degrees. See, I'm losing space time. At 6 degrees Gemini was a powerful new moon because ultimately what that did was upload a new way of thinking about ourselves. I find the premise of our thoughtware change. And that came organically, but I felt like after the new moon, I really felt a click, like all of a sudden just click on. And I think that thoughtware, that new perspective is part of what you're experiencing as wanting new things,
Right.
Wanting to get out of your old. But we have some other static going on too. We have Black Moon Lilith has been in Scorpio
Yeah.
since March 27th, and it stays until December of 20th of this year. So that's bringing up, I mean, Black Moon in Scorpio brings up the dirtiest, darkest shit that you don't want to look at. So that's coming up for people as far as fear is concerned. We had Saturn go into Aries on May 25th on Sunday. And I felt that actually change right away because suddenly I just sort of stood up in my chair and felt like, let's get to work.
Right.
So I felt a real like impulse. So I think that mixed with the new thought wearers making you want to do new things.
Right.
On Friday, May 30th, Mercury's going to conjunct the sun at 9 degrees. That's this Friday. And
Yep.
ultimately, what that comes down to is now fully moving forward with the new way of thinking about yourself. So we're still
Love it.
implementing like in different areas about how to think about ourselves. And I have experienced this in incredible ways. Like for one, I'm wanting to like remap how I do everything all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, let's move
Yeah.
this here, let's move that over there, let's plug this into that.
Yeah.
And just like for efficiency.
Be
At the
careful
same
now
time,
with
like I
plugging
said,
things in.
well, that was going to say at the same time, stuff's just not working. Like it's almost like I'm being led to plug it in different in those cases. Venus conjuncts Chiron at 25 Aries. That means we're going to really finally heal and forgive and give the future a break, ultimately. But I think in this first week, until we get to step 10, which is going to be Saturday, we're going to be ultimately implementing this new way of thinking about ourselves. But I'm already
agree.
seeing hints of the next chapter, which is I'm starting to think differently about things in my daily life and people in my daily life, like you, Scott.
100%. And I'm glad the astrology matches. But, and it's cool because my mom is coming on a Friday. My mom and dad are coming on the 30th to visit, to look at, scope new places to live too. So that'll be their new thought wear, like new location, new environment. So I'm excited about that, actually.
That's funny. They invited me over to dinner on Saturday.
Yeah, they just forgot to say you need to buy a plane ticket. That's all.
Oh, so funny.
It's in Reno.
It totally is. All right. That last joke is now sponsored by a commercial. We'll be right back. From the creators of 40 Days of Past Lives and Karma and 40 Days of Self-Love comes the class you've been waiting for, an introduction to step astrology. That's right, I'm sharing some of my inside secrets on how to read a chart according to step astrology and help you interpret the stars, whether it's for yourself or for clients. Keep a lookout for us coming soon. Serious Joy Academy and Introduction to Step Astrology will go live in the Taurus season. Oops. God, man. The tech just, oh, Jesus. This is a funny farm. I'm sorry, guys. We are literally drunk here. No, I'm kidding. But it sure looks like it. God, the whole crew, even Canada, he's always drunk. All right, let's get into our topic today, fears, phobias, and freakouts. Scott, let's talk about the anatomy of fear.
Well, no, that was my line. It said Scott, and then quote, my line
gotcha.
was, fear.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
well, I think it's good to start with as far as like spiritually fear, right? Because I think that people, tend to fear things in different dynamics. So when we talk to spiritually, when people are in fear as far as like where their life is going, about things that are happening, they're disconnected from themselves, right? They're disconnected from their true voice. And I always say our true voice is our lifeline. When you sever that connection, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. You don't know where you're going. It's almost like you're moving in the dark. So spiritually, the foundation with fear is because you're disconnected with the true self, the soul purpose, right? And of course, psychologically, fear is, I would say anxiety is also a side effect, and fear is also a side effect of also looking at things in a very disempowering format, right? Because the soul wants to grow, the soul wants to expand. That's our natural desire, our natural design. And we're going against that. Fear and anxiety will manifest because we're choosing the disempowered option in the spectrum of choices and probabilities and possibilities that we have. So understand, fear could be a very useful and a very, very helpful messenger if we understand how to utilize that. So spiritually, you're disconnected from your voice, and psychologically, you're actually considering a disempowered version out of the spectrum of opportunities that don't align with the soul purpose.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I see those categories for sure. I can see them in astrology too. So like spiritual fear would be coming from Black Moon Lilith, which are past lives remembered.
Yeah.
So the things that really hurt you. Psychological would be also some things. There's a asteroid called Psyche. That'd be your psychological fear, which is what you're afraid of, kind of like the mind games you're afraid of. And then
Right.
biological layers would be like Chiron issues, because anything Chiron turns biological. But there's also like, I feel levels of each fear. So like there's like low, medium, and high. And it kind of works through as you face the fear. I think most fear comes in high. There's also fear that of the unknown, but unknown is usually medium if you're a confident person, you know. And then the low fears are stuff that you just like kind of get a rumble, but you feel like you're kind of over it, but you don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it has to say boo one more time, and then you're like, okay, I'm over it. So it's like there's volumes of fear too.
I agree. Totally agree with that. And I think I like to call biological fear just karmic. And people say, oh, but my parents had this fear. It's like, but they're on the same similar karmic timeline as you. So of course they're going to possess the same attributes from previous incarnations. So yeah, and that's where I always say irrational fears, like people are just afraid of things they never experienced before in this lifetime. It's like, oh, you have that unresolved from a past lifetime. You know, like people I'm afraid of toilet paper, you know, these weird irrational fears. I'm afraid of like, you know, monkeys and clowns. It's like, well, something happened in previous incarnation that actually perpetuated that. So the fear could
Yeah.
tell you to look at that and resolve it.
Fear of heights or fear of water often is that you drowned or fall into
Right,
something.
right.
Yeah.
Claustrophobia.
Yeah, those types of things. And biological layers of fears often pork rinds, I find. Now,
Pork
fear-
rinds.
that was a joke. So fear versus intuition. How do you tell the difference between a fear and intuition? I feel that is mostly, you know, one scary intuition. Intuition will come first, and if what you're intuiting makes you afraid, that'll be a second. The fear will come after the intuition. That's my experience.
Well, you know, and again, sometimes it can happen synonymously too, right? I always feel like fear is an unresolved too. So like you can get an intuition about something and boom, I fear it, right? Be like, oh my gosh, I feel like something's gonna happen, but then it generates a fear emotion. But if we find a solution for it, then the fear will be resolved, so we have a direction. Right. So yeah, intuition is more of a, and I would say people say, what if I have an intuitive, you know, hit on something that's devastating? It's like, then your superhuman comes out of you. You know, like you just will know, like, well, I have to get it done. I know how to, you know, save this or work it. So, if the intuition is something that is fearful, you have an ambition to resolve it or to fight it in a sense. You know, fear in itself is very vapid. It doesn't have direction. It's just like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
intuition has more direction.
I feel like dangerous intuition comes in like I have a feeling. You know, it's not like it's you almost don't go. I don't go the full vision. I go like I don't know. Intuition is like a full knowing. I just know. But
Yeah.
intuition is something
Well,
scary. It's like I have a bad feeling. Like, you know, it's how they come in from my gate inside me. They're very distinct. The feelings between the two, like a good
yeah.
intuition or intuition. Yeah. Um,
Well, and of course we associate fear with something that's undesirable, right? So of course, if we feel something intuitively and it's undesirable, it's like I feel it because we understand it's undesirable. But that's what usually what fear is categorized as.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I would say so. Intuition, I find, comes in with a strong. It just has a strong like vibe around it that other things inside me don't. And I know once I identified that vibe, I could really tell if it was my imagination scaring me or if it was intuition. Because sometimes imagination and intuition feel very similar. Because I feel
That's true.
your intuition uses your creativity and imagination to like draw the pictures for you. Like God takes over your brain and makes it happen. And so they can be very confusing at first too.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was saying in this case, people need to understand imagination has two parts to it, a receiving aspect and also a projective aspect. So you receive inspiration, message from source, right? Message from spirit, and then you also can project it and be creative in the exporting of that. So we are going to get that intuition and imaginative space. So it's important for us to identify that too. And we can then, of course, be very creative on the fear of what we're getting intuitively and could completely, you know, trample on our intuition because we're so creative about the fear of the intuition. So I would say get the intuitive pulse first and distinguish, okay, this feels non-judgmental. You know, this feels like it just feels certain and then the fear is because of the psychological, you know, discord you have and any type of creative thinking we do because of the intuition.
I've noticed in
Yeah.
this new thought word that downloaded since the new moon, that I'm much more creative. Like my
Great.
creativity is just opened up to back to when it was when I was younger, and I couldn't tell. It's because my mind has like released fear. It was fear and phobia, which came up with karma. You know, after my 20s, like did
Yeah.
that clear out? Because I faced a lot of shadow in the last 9 months, and I feel very solid and clear. So my creativity has just been really through the roof. I mean, like I'm amazed when it comes in.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm always creative. I feel like I don't export it well sometimes, or it's just I feel like I have so much to do creatively,
Yeah.
you know. But when I'm working out karma, I'm not creative at all, you know.
Okay.
Especially like when I got burnout and I had burnout and I understood, okay, spirit, I understand. Like this, I'm going to deliberately take downtime and block off time work. I was not creative, but I was like, I'm not here to be creative right now in this phase. And it's like a lot of people too. Let's clarify. A lot of people think creative. They think artistically. Creative means how you go about doing things. You can be creative in how you be a parent. You can be creative of how you're doing your work. So it's not artistic, but yeah, I feel like, you know, when we're not being creative, understand that's when we need our downtime or face our karma.
I think that's what I was doing. I was facing karma. There's a lot of trauma.
You were.
But now that I'm wide open and feel open, it's like I'll go to like plug in a light bulb. I'm like, you know, we could do this better. You know, everything is like creative. I've got an idea for everything. How belief systems shape how we process fear. Yeah.
Well, I think that can go both ways, Christopher, right? So a lot of beliefs are formed because of fear. So because of things that have happened in our past, well, and we'll talk about just this incarnation, like things that have happened in this lifetime that we don't like, we fear it happening again. So a lot of times we'll create a belief that will protect us from doing it again. So for example, when I say that, like, say if someone was abused by a loved one when they were growing up, so their logic will create the belief that, well, to be abused is to be loved is to be abused. So I'm going to avoid love at all costs, right? So that fear is going to create a faulty logic, a faulty belief system, and that'll keep you deprived from love your whole life. And then you feel this kind of tug of war of this heart and soul of, I want love, I don't want love. So I think it's actually, you know, fear is, we have to be careful about fear creating belief systems and redirecting our belief systems to coincide with, you know, progression.
I agree. In fact,
You know,
when I went through my Chiron return, I realized that a lot of my beliefs have been shaped by going around fear.
right.
And I kind of changed things because I realized, oh my gosh, I've been avoiding this kind of subconsciously. Wasn't aware
Right.
to kind of return that this is the process and how that happens. So I think belief structures are a big part of it. But I will add on to your example that, you know, if you do get abused as a child, you probably were abused in a past life because childhood is often the recreation of past lives. Therefore, if you have a lot of irrational fear, like you shouldn't be so afraid of it, that's almost
Right.
always a past life that's adding to the fear of this life. So
That's right.
irrational fear is usually is past life. Is past life included? Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's an option: letting go versus taking control. What are your theories on that?
Well, to me, I think letting go is taking control. I mean, because I think that, again, like when we understand that, I always kind of use an analogy, like we're always kind of holding on to two ends of a rope. And so we're always playing that struggle with ourselves. I can't let go of the quick past, but I want the future. So that's what struggle is. So I like to redefine letting go as not like you're just releasing things. You understand why you're holding on. And so when you can identify why you're holding on, and a lot of that has to take place of taking control of how you're thinking, taking control of your belief structures, understanding the irrational beliefs that have been created from fear, and saying, I'm going to rewire this because this formatting isn't beneficial. So I want to create a formatting that's beneficial for me. And so that's taking control. And then when you have direction, guess what? You naturally let go. Right. And so
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel though, however, like if it's a new fear, don't let it just, don't lose control. I mean, do something. And usually the
Right.
response is love and your heart saying, this is not true. This is a fear, identifying it, creating a wall between it. Like, this isn't something I want to hold on to. And when you've done all that ritual, you've done, I think, what you can. And you just have to kind of like get through the haunted house and
Yeah.
get through it. Yeah.
Well,
So
it's like the fear of the unknown to me is like the fear of unknown means that you're not focusing on, you're not creating what's known for you for the future. That's why people fear the unknown, right? So the fear could be a messenger, like, hello.
I found fear of the unknown too. It's just I wasn't ready. So there's been things I was
Oh, yeah.
afraid of doing, and then as time went on, the fear dissipated, and I suddenly had the courage to do it. So sometimes I think here's the thing about fear: it's not really here to spook you; it's here to tell you something.
Right.
Like fear has something to tell you. It has something to tell you about your nervous system and how prepared you are, and whether you had
Right.
something in history or not. And so I feel like one way to face fear is just to see it for what it is, a really icky feeling that's representing something heavy you have to face.
Yeah, I agree. And then fear is a result. It's a result.
Yeah.
So always ask yourself, what is this a result of? And when you find what the cause of that is, then you reprogram, redirect, and fear is nothing. So I embrace any type of fear. Sometimes I get excited because I don't feel fear too often, and when I do, I'm like, ooh, upgrade time.
Yeah. I know when I hit fear, I know if I'm just thinking about things and stuff crosses my mind and suddenly I'm filled with fear. I don't know why. It's horrible feeling, but I realize there's something about what I just thought, something that's triggering an idea or something that's happened to me. And so I try to like analyze at that point what could have happened to me that makes me be afraid of this, because this is irrational. I've never seen this before in my life. And quite often it's like one or two pieces of the sentence. Like sometimes just one piece of the sentence is something horrible that's happened, but the other piece I feel is benign. This is just doing
Right.
spiritual gut checks. And so sometimes you actually, half the idea is what's triggering the fear. But again, it's a signal, something's not good.
Yeah. And Jade said too about working on the relationship with fear. It's not so much working on your relationship with fear, it's working about your response to fear. So many people get paralyzed in the fear and they don't do, I'm just going to withhold. And it's like, don't work on your relationship with it, work on your response to it. And I think that's going to be the thing that will be a key component, what makes you realize your patterns that have been depriving of you, that's created the fear in the beginning with.
And I'll repeat, the best response is to love yourself, almost like loving your little child under the sheets is afraid, and just talk to that innocent part of yourself and just say, like a parent, it's like, it's gonna be okay. I'm here. We got it. Like, as silly as that sounds, it works. Like you feel better and you think, I can't believe that just worked, but those two sides of you, the child of you is living in space time right now, and you are living in space time right now. So you are speaking straight to your child. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about the spiritual purpose of panic. Boy, I guess panic's there. Is your freak out a breakdown or a breakthrough usually for you?
Oh, the spiritual purpose of panic. I mean, it's kind of like a fine line. I mean, again, I'm going to kind of sound a little redundant on this one or repetitive. Like panic is just, again, I feel like it's your soul's way of pushing you, but also at the same time, you're unknown to what the push is. Right. And so if you allow yourself to look deeper what the push is for yourself, you wouldn't panic. You'll understand like your soul's like had enough of the repetitive patterns and the soul's trying to get you to move forward, and so it's a sense, another form of anxiety, really. And that's also people get panicked because, things are progressing in our lives and they don't understand where it's taking them, or they feel, out of sync with it. So it's like, oh my God. And so it's like we have to understand to roll with it. I always feel like if you claim to be spiritual, then you must understand and develop the idea and philosophy that everything that's happening around you is because you have to experience it, not that you have to try to get out of it. And so when we try to get out of things, that creates the panic instead of saying, oh, okay, this is a circumstance I'm supposed to focus on, I'm supposed to evolve from. So therefore, I'm not panicking, I'm taking my time with it, I'm nurturing it. And then before you know it, you're out of the circumstance. So spiritually, that's what it means spiritually.
Interesting. I find that when I'm in a panic, I can't think logically. I can't use logical solutions. Like I'm freaking out. But I usually find that one, I don't have enough sleep. My nervous system is way overshot already. I was already under stress. So a lot of times panic happens just because I'm already ready to tip or freak out, and it was just the last last little pin that fell on the pile. But I do agree with you that like a lot of times if you panic, there's a history of it, and a history of it that part of you is keeping count and you're not getting any better. And so the stakes are raising and the overall stakes are raising and you know it. Or you have several things you've been panicking about. But I would tell you, in modern days, a lot of panic is actually induced by medicine. It's not induced by...
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Certain medicines, pharmaceutical medicines, that is, puts, the side effect is that you're way wound up, or your nervous system is over stimulated. So if you are having panic out of nowhere and you just recently started taking medication, you might consider the medication as the issue.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because like Spirit was telling me, talk about the different types of panic, right? Because I think I started talking about like psychological, spiritual, emotional panic, about circumstantial things in your life. That's another one, right? There could be things that will enhance your fears, right? Yes. A medicine, a drug, right? And there's also sometimes intuitive panic could be a good thing too. Sometimes it could be an intuition. It's like, oh my God, I got to do something. It's like, and the intuitive panic is saying, you've been slagging on this. It's time to get this done before something happens. Yeah, go get that checked out. Go make sure that's benign. You have to panic to make sure you're forcing. So it's important to understand, is the panic productive or is it just unproductive? Is it just responsive? Me responding to circumstance. So I think this way you can understand differences too between the intuitive panic as well. But yeah, we need to be understanding of what we're doing with our cognitive aspect. Like you said, I think that's very important. It's just different aspects of panic.
Yeah. And you know what I have to say too, living too close to electronics or something like 5G or being close to like high power things, high power lines, I find that also creates almost an anxiety in me right away. So I think if you're
Yeah,
sensitive, you pick up on a lot of stuff in the environment that's poisoned right now, that
totally.
underlying panic because it's got you, kind of wigged out to begin with. So, yeah, interesting. I think all panic will lead to a breakthrough eventually. I think, if you keep investigating what is triggering you, you will understand at some point. But you just got to
Yeah.
keep going through the options in your head. And if it's something you never thought of, you have to expose yourself to new ideas. Okay, something she's calling divine disruption. She, as in our producer, chaos as a sacred invitation. Huh. Not sure what she means by that.
Well, I think that sometimes I would not so much a sacred invitation. I would say kind of like initiation. Because a lot of times, if we're looking to upgrade our lives spiritually, Christopher, and you know this, sometimes, spirit will create some sort of chaos in your life to like defragment things and to break things down in your life that need to be broken through. Because if we want to upgrade our psychological perspective, our spiritual perspectives, our careers, and we still haven't broken out of the same paradigm, yeah, spirit's going to pull the rug beneath your feet and break those things down. I think that sometimes a little bit of disruption, a little bit of chaos, of breaking things down can actually be a huge spiritual initiation to saying like, you're ready for your upgrade. We got to get rid of this shit. And the cliche sentiment of breaking down to break through. So, and I think that's very important too in these situations in our lives when we start seeing things crumbling. And I'm sure you've seen Christopher, your clients. Many clients are like, I became spiritual and my boyfriend left me. I lost my job. It's like, yeah, needs to be chaos because you're upgrading. Those things don't match you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the universe was created from chaos. If you look
Yeah.
like a pond water in a, under a microscope, it looks like chaos. Nature,
Yeah.
there's chaos in nature. In step astrology, chaos is step 22 of any sign. And what the definition of chaos in step astrology is that two different feelings come crashing together and must be resolved. Resolved as in one must go away from the other, or they must hybrid into something new. And the chaos is the feeling of the choice and the emotions behind it. And so
Yeah.
if you have two people who are on emotional opposing sides, I mean, when you feel stress, like when someone someone does something really inappropriate on television or something, that stresses, you feel that should be done and it's being done. And there's people who witness it who agree with it. And so that is, what causes chaos too, is like emotional chaos. The
Yeah.
sacred invitation is to learn your powers, that
Right.
you have the ability to energetically transform any situation, including reality, if you learn how to do it. So
Right.
I think it's an invitation into your mastery, frankly. That's the invitation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I call it initiation. Because like when you level up, you become the 33rd degree. It's like an initiation period, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. And of course, there's different levels of the chaos, like you were stating. Like there's unnecessary chaos, and sometimes chaos is beautiful. Like I mean, look at the stripes on animals, the colors. It's very chaotic in its like beautiful color spectrum. It's chaotic, right? But it's beautiful. So we have to understand the yin and the yang to it too. The purpose of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's almost random. Randomness is cool, but if you look at it, it's really chaos. Just
Right.
something planned there. Yeah. You can look at it both
Right.
ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes anxiety too is excitement. I found that out from Gary,
Totally.
Human Garage.
Yeah.
That the hormone, like apparently the hormone in our biology stream is like uses the same hormone for uh, anxiety and excitement, the same hormone in the
Right.
blood, which means that the mind is interpreting it in that moment with this consciousness as how to interpret the same drug, basically, or the same hormone. So
Right.
that's also interesting that if you find that contrary that you just brought up, you can offer it in your mind to yourself and maybe come out of it.
Well, that's why I always talk shit about the high frequency, low frequency stuff. Because like anxiety is high frequency too. So is joy is high
Yeah.
frequency. It's the same. It's a faster frequency. Same thing. Low frequency that could be depression, but it could also be meditation.
Yeah.
So there's a polarity. So we say, oh, that's high vibe, that's too low vibes. Like, be careful what you're saying when you say those things because like two exist in the same frequency, right? And so there's a duality. So yeah, completely. And sometimes we can have both. I'm anxious and I'm excited at the same time, which a lot of people have.
Yeah, there's several parallels going on. That's another thing too.
Right.
If you don't take the time to isolate and separate your feelings, like, oh, that's my feeling about the past. That's my feeling about my partner. That's my feeling about
Right.
this. If you don't separate those, which are boundaries, when you separate and make distinctions, that's a subtle boundary. Then what happens is all the emotions come clamoring in and bouncing off of each other in chaos, and you start to have emotional storms inside of you, which is also chaos, simply because you haven't taken the time to distinguish the different feelings and make them all small cups of water instead of like a swimming pool.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's all about self reflection. And that's what self love is. Self-love is that I need to like manage like what is going through me, what's going through my brain, like what am I thinking? That's self-love because you're saying I don't want this stuff interfering with my perspective. I don't want this stuff interfering with my emotions. That's self-love.
Yeah.
Like we said before, start looking yourself in the mirror. This is the self-love work.
Yeah, self-love leads to self-realization. And when you have self-realization and you realize this is just you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or this is what everyone goes through because you study Buddhism or you study that, that helps a lot. And so I think a lot of times meditation, the idea of I'm going to go meditate. Well, I feel there's more to meditate than on blinking out your thoughts. You can meditate on why did I feel so bad today? Like, what the hell? You can meditate on what did she mean by that? And just like closing your mind. You know what I mean? Like, and just letting it go in, you actually get the answers if you meditate on it and focus your mind.
Why'd she wear that skirt? What the fuck's she thinking?
It's just so weird. We're tight tonight. Okay. Well,
what was that scent? Yeah, exactly.
What was that smell? So now let's talk about how we can face fear and grow from it. How do you turn fear into fuel?
Well, I think we kind of just said that. We kind of went and blended into that, right? It's just the recognition of it. Because if you understand, like, okay, I have this fear here, but you don't just sit and dwell on it. And you're like, okay, but what am I going to do with this? Mentioned this before. It's like you're turning into something, a realization, direction. Well, then that's what you're doing. It's just flip-flopping the energy. And that's where I think that we should be the energetic alchemists that we are. Say, I'm taking this circumstance and turning to something powerful. It's just the conscious awareness of it. I think that the problem is that there's no formula to that. It's just the conscious awareness of such. That's what I think, honestly. I'm going to take this. I've learned I had a shitty relationship that was abusive. And so I know now, like, I'm not going to fear being the same person. I know better that I'm not going to have that same person. I have a better value system for myself now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the conversion.
Yeah. Well, that's turning, fear into wisdom, which then loses all fear. Because once you figure it out, you're just like, thank God, I think you can turn fear into literal fuel because what happens is when you have a real fear come up, you're on those endorphins, the release of the endorphins for about 8 hours.
Oh,
And so you can just go, when you know that was a fearful thing, instead of like freaking out all day, you can just be like, I'm going to use this energy to reorganize the garage. You can use that energy and do something with it in that regard because you're on the hormones for a while. That's the hard part about it.
Yeah.
What about turning anxiety into action? Any thoughts on that?
Again, Christopher, I'm sure you agree with me. That's a choice. It's like, what are you going to do if you're anxious? You're going to sit in your home all day? Or are you going to like eat bonbons? And I mean, those things that exist anymore. It's like that 90s sentiment, eat bonbons on the couch. But I mean, it's a choice. Do you want to sit here and wallow in it? Do you enjoy the anxiety? Because if you don't do anything with it, like go for an exercise, go for a run, or like do meditation or do something to make yourself feel good, then you're saying you enjoy the anxiety. So how can you expect anything different? So this is all choice. It's all choice. You should observe, and that's the awareness we were talking about. Like, how habitual have you been of just choosing to sit in it, choosing to complain about it, choosing I got to keep talking about how, like, yeah, I just feel shitty, and all right, you keep talking about it. Now what? What's next? I'm bored of the story. Are you bored of the story?
I find I have a person who's like suffered anxiety, which by the way came from a medicine that was falsely prescribed. Medicinal anxiety does not change with logic. You can't talk yourself out of it. Like, it's there because it's biological. And in that case, I'd be like, fuck you if you just told that to me. Because like I can't shake it. But I do find that when you're not having anxiety and you've gone through it, you do tend to talk about it too much at that point because it's like you're basically in trauma from it and you can't stop talking about it because you're scared of it coming back so bad. Just like pain. Like if you have a lot of pain, if you live in pain and then when it's gone, all you talk about is that you're in pain. Because you've been suffering and you almost have to like therapy it out. So it's hard. Both of those are hard, I find.
Yeah, but again, if you understand, a lot of anxiety is coming from the suppression of the voice. Bottom line, the suppression of the inside. I would say like depression is like compression. When people get depressed, they like go into fetal position because there's nothing wrong with depression. It's the result that it's time to go within. Time to go within. That's why we go this way when we get depressed because we got to go within and say, what does my foundation say about this again? Right? Then you start recognizing anxiety has just been a result of you just not listening to shit and just considering all the stuff that's not relevant to, you know what I mean? And so having the choice to be clear about that and then taking action to make a different decision, right? And I want to say too, taking action, I think people misunderstand action a lot of times, Christopher. They think action means like, oh, I got to go pound the pavements. Taking action means that you're going to stop hearing the gossip. You're going to stop talking shit to yourself, right? You're going to stop allowing yourself to consider this crap. That's also taking action.
Yeah. But I will make another distinction from medicinally created depression. Some people are in depression. What happens is they actually start going down a hole, and
That's right.
they forget they can do anything about it, and they stop
It's
forgetting
true.
that they have. They also lose all their energy. They just want to sleep all the time and withdraw all the time. So they're not
Right.
motivated for anything either. So they lose their motivation. So, I would say if you're a person who is afraid of falling into depression, you should take advantage of that moment, knowing that you're afraid of it, and start facing that fear right away. Because once you
Yeah.
start falling into it and thinking that you've lost your choice, then you're really in a rabbit hole. Because if you believe you've lost your choice, then you of course have lost your choice. Like you're going to follow whatever you guide yourself to. That's
But
definitely
that
really
in
going down
itself
a
is a
rabbit
choice.
hole. Yeah.
Yeah, but that in itself is a choice, right? To say you have no choice, that in itself is a choice.
I don't disagree with the choice. I'm talking about you just feel so weighted down you can't do anything.
Right,
I know people who
right,
can't get out
right,
of bed. They just can't get out of bed.
right, right.
And I don't. They're not lying. They're sitting there
No, I know.
crying. Yeah, and they say we have a choice. They're just like they just can't. I can't even. They'll say to me, I can't even get out of the bed. And
Right.
at first, it sounds like they're kind of robbing you of your attention, but you do if you go see them in person or something. You're an intuitive person. You'll see your friend or whoever is paralyzed by it.
Oh,
And at that point,
we've both
yeah,
been there. We've
yeah, I
both
have
been
in my
there,
life. Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
it's
because
like,
I've been
and
there, I know. Yeah.
I found the most effective encouragement was people just not trying to get me out of it. Just like say,
Right.
process it. Like, what are you feeling? It's all right. Like, just chill. What are you thinking? And what are you feeling right now? And just like working with the micro dosing of steps. Of like, let's take it here. Don't like, you're not going to go out to the mall right now. Like, it's not going to happen. And so it's just like somebody just have to let yourself feel.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
let yourself
Sometimes
feel.
or face it. Yeah.
But
I do
Christopher, a
think
lot of
it's
people have anxiety. But a lot of people have anxiety because they're not feeling. Christopher, like they're not feeling, and
yes,
that's a
that's
problem.
true.
They're afraid of
Yes.
feeling, so that creates anxiety in itself.
Yes, I agree that if you repress your feelings too long, it'll create anxiety because part of you is screaming that it's not being addressed. Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of ways these things happen. The truth is, there's lots of routes into these things, and ultimately, though, I hear that you can use ketamine.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I heard ketamine works. Okay,
Yes,
I think that's
I heard
true.
ecstasy
I've
works
done some of that
too.
research. That might be true.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I do think like LSD, and I think that I'm not saying do it, but I'm just saying psychedelics like mushrooms, something God made, apparently, it gives you the power to remap your brain in that session. And so a lot of people do, and there's medical studies that show mushrooms and also ketamine can sometimes disrupt long enough to break out of that.
Sure. But back in I think the 50s and 60s, did they use also like LSD and ecstasy as in therapy actually to help too? They used
Yeah,
to use it in
well,
therapy.
our government used it on people who didn't know they took it, so that was pretty hard. So
Yeah.
that was a bad study. And then as far as I heard that ecstasy, MSM, what is it called? MS, I can't remember. MD, MDMA?
MDNA. Yeah.
Apparently that was used on soldiers after Vietnam,
Mm.
and they found that the soldiers really did respond great to it, and so they made it illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Right.
Of
So
course.
that's how it works.
There's
Um,
breakthroughs. Ban it.
what about examples of where creativity is born from the chaos, like how fear turns into innovation?
Well, I have to say, that's where a lot of revolutionists come out of, because like if we look at like say those who've changed things and with civil rights and so forth, there's a fear like it was going down a darker path of restriction, so that caused them to rise up and make change, right? And so there's a grander level that we can do that. Many people like I can't even think about that, fathom about that, but I've seen people turn chaos into a testimony of helping people instead of going in a direction with a career. They're like, you know what? Because of what I went through, I want to mentor or be a therapist of people who went through the similar trauma I've been through, right? So it's like taking the karmic theme in your life that created the fear, the panic, and turning it into the testimony. But in a sense, you're converting that energy into a positive, in an empowering state. And when we do that, we tend to want to share that. So why not turn that into something that could be innovation, a new career, right? A new expression. I always say, your repetitive theme in your life is your karma. That's your underlining, I would say, strength and power. So when you get a hold of that and you master that, yes, it will definitely be innovative for other people.
I find some of my most genius stuff comes when I'm threatened, or put in a
Angry,
corner.
depressed, yep.
Yeah, it's sort of like it backs you in a corner. And I feel some people manifest that sort of situation. Like, for instance, the kid who waits until the night before the final to study, I find that some people really do study better under those over those anxious conditions. Like their
Yeah.
brain out of that fight or flight, whatever, they get the best out of themselves. A lot of people I
Hmm.
find are afraid of dealing with situations, so they'll put it off, put it off, put it off. They'll procrastinate it just like that, like with a person, and then the person blows up and they're suddenly creative. So I
Right.
think we subconsciously fall into this, and we use it subconsciously, because somehow deep inside we know it's going to lead to an innovation. So.
Hmm.
But most innovation is a result of a problem we can't solve. I mean, we get backed into it, and just more creativity is put on it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, don't make sure
Interesting.
you don't fall the rabbit hole of getting. I used to get anxiety about getting anxiety. I used
Oh
to get
yeah.
anxious about having an anxiety attack.
Well, that's
You know,
okay. I don't even know what that's called, but that's legit. Like, so if you
it
already are
is.
afraid, you get afraid of something, you let the fear go too long, then you start to get anxious because the fear goes, and then you get anxious about getting anxious,
Yep.
and that's the same thing that causes pain addiction. Pain medication. You have the pain, the medication makes it go away. Then you start becoming afraid the pain will come back. So you start taking more medication. You take it earlier
Right.
before you're supposed to. And again,
Right.
that same sort of buildup causes people to be, pain addicts. We look down on people who are addicted to pain medication, but the honest God truth is, psychologically, it's easy to happen. It's very easy to happen
Yeah.
because you're just trying to avoid pain in the beginning.
Yeah.
Not everyone's getting high off it.
It's true.
So so how do we integrate, Scott, what we run from?
How do we integrate what we run from? I always feel like whatever we're running from is ourselves. It's older version of ourselves. So I'm going to go deep more spiritually on this aspect because, like we said before, the things that you're running from, you fear, is things that you don't want to repeat, actually, right? So at some level of your being, you've done this before, you experienced it before, and you're saying, I don't want to repeat that. So you run from that. You're thinking, if I run from it, I won't experience it. And it's like, it's always coming with you. You're living with it. It's within you. Even that fear is within you. So the way to really kind of break through that is to accept that, is to embrace it. Say, you know what, this is what is. This is the it's almost like it's the shadow work, right? It's kind of looking at this as an alternate version of myself. And of course, we always tend to externalize the versions of ourselves. And, and I think that stop externalizing it, bring it within. It's part of you. And when you understand it's part of you, you start to whip it like it's your bitch. Okay.
Got you. Yeah, I think in a private session, if people are running from something, first of all, if you have a fear, one good tool is to go, what do you wish could happen? And usually what you wish for is kind of seems impossible, whatever they wish for. But as soon as they feel the feeling of the wish leading to the feeling of calm, they realize, oh shit, this is all inside of me. Even though I wish
Right.
for, a giant zebra to fall on his head, I feel better. So it's like, so sometimes your imagination will get you out of that. And sometimes I find that, when I'm running from something, if I just I look for a way to like make it go away. I look for, and in that moment, I end up innovating. Like, so I see something I didn't see before because I was so afraid of it. So sometimes fear
Totally.
leads- yeah, totally.
And I gotta
Yeah.
say too, like I used to be very like hard on the manifestation communities because I knew like they're just bullshit. But here's the thing: I'm so thankful about that manifestation communities too because it taught people to redirect thought. Right. So in order to get people to listen to how to redirect thoughts, say, well, if you think about it, you're going to get it. It's going to manifest. And so even though it's not completely true, I like the fact it now has people thinking about understanding what it's like to redirect thought, right? To like, wow, I have been thinking so shittily. Okay, now I can reel it back and start being productive, work on myself. And so that's, I think, the best thing that came out of the manifestation communities, the law of attraction craze, is that people actually started becoming the dictator of their thoughts and more conscious of what they're thinking and what they're giving their energy to. But I mean, I just feel like I've been called to kind of fluff it down to bring it back to reality now, so people can move on and expand more. But yeah, I think that the whole mastery is that observing thought, understanding that the fear is just part of ourselves, and understanding how to navigate and where is it pointing in the direction that you want. Because fear is deprivation. What are you wanting to expand? Like you said, your wishes. So yeah, that's how you become a dominator on it.
Yes, I've seen you run from manifestation in every show.
Well, because
So I
manifestation is
see,
like
I see
it's a
you're speaking from
result.
experience there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a manifestation is like a result of how you've expressed something, So it's
Yeah.
like it sounds so weird to me. It's like I'm learning how to manifest. Like everything's manifesting. It's but
Automatically.
yeah, everything's manifest. But you express, things manifest. You take action, things manifest. You believe, things that your behavior manifests.
Yeah. Although I've switched my term, and you're partly the inspiration to I materialize. I
Yeah,
feel like
I like that.
it's materialization, and I'm using it just because manifestation is so loaded now. But I
Right.
feel like you materialize something, it goes from spirit to actuality. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying as far as the integration is concerned as well.
But
All
materialism
right.
makes more sense. Yeah, it makes more sense though, Christopher. Yeah, it's
Well,
more
yeah,
accurate. It's more accurate.
I agree. Well, I found it partly because you didn't like the word, and I was like, huh. I realized it was really holding space for the possibility of. It wasn't actually pushing you to actually make it happen. And so I agreed with you, and Spirit gave us I materialize. The last point is bringing home the parts of ourselves we feel exiled out from fear. I'll answer that one first, if I may. That one
Yeah,
is one
please.
that I've just experienced that. I mean, having gone through a couple breakdowns in the last 2 years since my current return, those parts of yourself want to return first of all, and you saw them leaving, and it was making you more afraid. I mean, like when you saw you were shutting down, that you were less funny, or you weren't laughing as much, or these parts of yourself that everyone enjoys, and people tell you like, "Where's that Christopher that did this?" and "Where's that Christopher?" It's like you're like you get spooked out by it because you do start to fear like, "Oh shit, what if it's gone forever?" Like mom, or whatever. But I will say that when you resolve whatever the core issue is, these parts just open back up. Sort of like a plant will lose its leaves and just grow back new leaves. I find it just grows back in right away. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of things we feared, those things that we thought we couldn't do, like those will resurface. But I feel like we feared them because we knew we didn't grow confidence with them. So
Okay.
if you fear about doing something or a certain skill set, I would say confidence is a result of how comfortable you are with something. Get comfortable with the expression. Find ways to get comfortable with it. You'll become confident. I mean, we weren't so confident riding a bicycle when we were a kid, right? And so once we became more comfortable learning it and doing it, then we do it with our eyes closed now, and we're confident with doing it. So, yeah, look at those things that you feel that you're afraid of doing. If it's like, I have a fear of public speaking, well, then obviously you must be a public speaker. Because you wouldn't have a
Yes.
fear. You wouldn't be focusing there if it was something you were supposed to do or it wasn't part of your trajectory. So, yeah, I would say people say, am I missing signs? If you fear doing something or fear expressing something, that's where that's what you should be doing. That's who you are. And just get comfortable with it, and you'll be confident with it.
Yeah, that reminds me of the word never. If I've said it as a child, I'll never do that. Well, that's because I was afraid of it, it turns out. And so I almost always was going to end up having to do it. Like, I'm like, Jesus Christ. I said I never do it. Here I am, at a party wearing a fish costume naked, like something crazy I said never do. So I say never say never, because it's almost like a guarantee it's going to happen kind of thing, of that fear of not doing and losing it. So we have one little commercial, and we'll be right back, folks.
It's in the stars to seriously change your life with a subscription to Serious Joy. Sign up now for your personalized step astrology and daily pep talk. Highly predictive astrology sent via text and email. Daily zodiac weather reports. Advanced lectures, classes, edutainment series, and more. Sign up today for only $3.99 to seriously change your life. Only on SeriousJoy.com.
The last thing we didn't talk about, Scott, was freakouts. When people freak out, what is your go-to for something like that if someone's freaking out about something? Because, I mean, a lot of people who freak out or in that moment seem to be unapproachable. And, like, if you try to help them, they just freak out more.
Yeah, that's kind of it's a fine line between a freak out and a panic, but a lot of people say like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Like, yeah, you can't get through to them in that moment. Sometimes they just need to freak out. And I think sometimes people are freaking out about the silliest things need to understand that when they go through the freak out process and they realize nothing happened, then they realize, oh, I'm just really kind of just freaking out. And sometimes people freak out because they want attention, right? Sometimes people freak out because they're out of control. Sometimes people freak out because they don't have experience on things. Sometimes people freak out because they're in new territory, right? There's so many different reasons why people freak out. And so I think in order for somebody to get comfortable with something I was saying before, they got to ride out the freak out. Not the freak off, the freak out.
Yeah, freaking off is usually my first response. I have to say, I agree that
Did he do it?
first of all, if you are literally losing control and freaking out, breathing is very important.
True.
Because actually, if you regulate your breathing, you will actually calm yourself down. So if you purposely breathe, there's a lot of breathing techniques that will just calm you down. Basically, where you're overriding your own nervous system and you're giving it a signal the brain uses, which is just more oxygen. So that's like the first thing, is try to get them to breathe. I think back in sitcoms, they would like hand you a paper bag. And that was the wisdom of the sitcoms in the 50s, like paper bag,
Yeah.
which if you look at it, it was like a breathing technique. They're forcing them to slow down their breathing.
Right.
So I think that's it too. I also feel that if you are freaking out, you should leave your environment. Like wherever you are is just obviously encouraging it or not stopping it. nature is the best way. So if you go outside, a lot of times I used to have to go outside when I was having my highest panic attacks, which were basically when I was on a medication I shouldn't have been on. It was prescribed to me, but I would just go outside. I would do exercise like yoga 3 times a day as it got worse. No, but you know, there's natural ways, you know, but I was on the treadmill so much my feet were hurting, you know, so you have to keep it in balance too, because you can hurt yourself. The freak out will give you so much energy, you can run yourself into the ground, you know. The last thing I would do is use any kind of another drug. Like I wouldn't add a drug to it if it's drug induced. I would add something organic and natural. And there's foods that will calm you down too.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, and that's why I kind of was like, my approach to freakouts, because I feel freakouts kind of like on the lower scale of like less intense as a, you know, phobia, freak out, or panic, you know, because a lot of people freak out about things that they need to freak out about, right? And so, but I like your approach too. I'm glad you brought up the medicinal side of things, because that's so many people have that issue too. It's not just always spiritual. And I read people's like, actually, it's a drug that's causing this. And so I'm glad you're tackling that aspect, because it's very real, you know. And yeah, sometimes it could be a freak out because it could be an intuitive, and I'm glad you're covering that too. You could be intuitively feeling something about an environment, you're freaking out. Like, I don't know, I feel something. Yeah, get out of the location too, if it's intuitive.
Well, that's a good point right there. A lot of times, I mean, I'll tell you this right now. I was in front of someone who I knew was going to be a killer one day. Like I knew they're going to be a killer. I could feel, they kind of have, all I can describe it is you look in their eyes and it looks like their eyes are laughing. It's weird. It made me understand cartoons as a kid, because they'd have like, you know, the eyes, and then they had the like the hyena sound. And then I saw that for the first time in my life, where I saw like the hyena laughing behind the person. And I was like, oh my God. And I panicked, you know, I was like, Jesus, this person, because he was threatening me or whatever, you know, like with physical violence right there for something I didn't do that he was putting it in his head. So I was seeing him logically, you know, starting to build up a case to hurt me. And at the same time, I saw that insanity in his eyes, and my intuition, which is very good, but I didn't recognize it as a kid, was telling me like, you need to leave now. We need to leave now. You know, fortunately, like someone came around the corner and was like, hey, Bubba. And his name was Bubba.
That's funny.
You know, like, you know, get back in there. You know, he's like, yes, sir. He was off to that authority, but he just randomly wanted to hurt me. It was a scary moment. Yeah. And intuition can play into that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Because there's honestly freakouts, you got to ride through. And then, yeah, if it's an intuitive push, understand it. Because if you're new to intuition or not practicing intuition often, it can come up as a panic or a freak out. So I would say cross-check when you feel that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, freaking out. Definitely, if you leave your environment and you try to breathe, and sometimes water helps too, because a lot of times people are dehydrated and they don't realize it. So, and again, not just medicine. Like if you are eating a lot of processed food of a certain kind, if you're eating too much of anything of a processed food, like you're just eating like pancakes every morning with the you know processed flour, you can literally bring up whatever's in that stuff to such a level in your bloodstream that it causes you to freak out, because most toxins end up messing with the nervous system.
100%, yeah, because it's a very dense, frequency of energy. So then you'll be dense in energy too, and so then that means you're not clear. That means you're not intuitive, sluggish, So I think it's also good to, be intuitive with the frequency of food that you buy, and, yes, read your labels, of course, but like also understand, is this the frequency that I need? Does this frequency match the energy that I'm looking for? Because so many people, and when you're in low, and when you're in kind of the bad aspect of a low frequency, will attract and crave lower frequency foods that are in the bad end of the spectrum too, that are very dense. And so, we need to be conscious of that, because that definitely affects cognitive functionality and intuitive awareness.
Yeah. Also, being too sedentary. If people don't get exercise, you don't realize the body needs to be used. And if you don't use your body, if you don't exercise, if nothing else, a walk. A walk is like everyone can do for the most part. Those who can't, I'm not referring to you. But like if you go for a walk, you actually will. So many things happen in a walk. You have no idea. Your brain re-diagnoses itself and rebalances. You're moving away, and just the idea of movement itself, like you could move away, you could run away.
Yes.
Knowing you could run away by moving makes you feel like you have an escape hatch, if nothing else. So I know a lot of people who sit around and they eat processed foods, and they sit there and they end up gaining weight because of the processed foods, and then they sit more and they gain more weight, sit more, and they get to this point where now they're not happy with themselves because they've gained too much weight or whatever from the processed food. I don't think it would have been if it was from real food, frankly. And now they start having anxiety,
right?
Because they're not moving. It's not because the food in that case, it's that you haven't moved, and your body is freaking out on the inside because something's really wrong.
And then you panic.
It's feeling death. The body's like, oh God, we're gonna die if we don't get off this couch.
Right.
You know,
and the
so,
body's gonna panic, and it's gonna be like,
Yes.
okay, we got to do something here. We got to do something here. And a lot of times that panic is an alert system. It's a result that, like, hello, you're taking things too far too. And it's a freak out. And so, you have to ask yourself, how are you nurturing things? Are you it's like you're a plant. And it's like, are you putting water and nurturing, or are you putting crap in there? Like, and so many people wonder, like, why is my body hurt? I'm like, do you use it? Do you put love into your body? You're just banging it around and throwing it around, and let's keep it simple. And so a lot of freakouts, phobias, and panics come from the lack of nurturing, a lack of attention that we put on ourselves.
Yes. In fact, anything in life you don't exercise regularly, such as a talent or anything, will begin to atrophy. And parts of your body you don't use will begin to atrophy. Like, if you don't give it conscious attention, it starts to pull away from you. And so a lot of times we just have to give more attention to more parts of ourselves that we've neglected, often because we're indulging in something to avoid something. Like, you're indulging in video games all day. Hey, video games are cool and all, but if you put all your life into something like that and you neglect the parts of your life that would have had attention otherwise, you're setting yourself for some anxiety problems, you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems. You have to stay
100%. 100%, because that's repression, man. Repression of expression, to me, I'm repetitive about it. It's all about expression, and if you're repressing that expression, well, that's, again, the soul feels trapped. It will create illnesses, it'll create panic, it'll create anxieties, it'll create all these different things until you snap out of it. So I'm glad, great point you made there.
One day I want to talk about this theory I have, but I've had a lot of readings, where parents come because their child has died or something really heavy like that. And a lot of times it's because the soul, when I pick up psychically, our higher self can abort the mission. I don't know if people know that, but it's like, if you built this avatar on Earth and you are living through it, and it suddenly, gets addicted to something and starts, like, ruining its life, literally the higher self is like, I screwed up with this, and pull it. And so the down spirit, the spirit of the avatar here on Earth, will literally do something stupid and kill themselves. Like, a lot of sudden death and stuff is the fact that they were way off track. They were not paying attention to their intuition. They were not paying attention to their higher self. And so as a result, I feel like from heaven down, it was aborted. So it could start over again. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. They've gone too far. With it.
But it's your higher self. It's not God who's judging you, which is kind of what we were told to believe, once upon a time.
Right.
It's that your higher self, which is your creator, you, the high vibration of you, is killing off the part of you that continues to stay in low because you're not doing what you planned. So it's wasting its time space.
I just think of it like a video game. When you're playing a game, you got a level. It's like, oh gosh, I got too far out. I'm going to die if I go back. So, like, you pull a plug, you start over, and sometimes your higher self says it's necessary to do that. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. And it's interesting because I take the same. Just recently, my new ThoughtWare, I really am taking this new approach where I feel like we're in a video game. This is a role-playing game. It's being run from a higher vibration in heaven, which I call the company of heaven. And the company of heaven, I believe that we're meditating right now and casting this in here, which means that nothing is real. This is a dream we're living, and so we have the right to change dream at any time if we just knew it was a dream. So it's interesting how things are shifting so quickly.
Yeah.
Well, we have 1 minute left of the show now for the last 5 minutes, so I think it's time to close. I hope you...
1 minute left for the last 5 minutes.
It's an Morgan. That'll be a good one. So, folks, if you find yourself in a shift show, even if it's for anxiety, don't deal with that crap. Lead out loud.
Lead out loud. Yeah. Good night, guys.
Bye. That was crazy. Yeah, it was a good show. It seemed kind of serious. It was like Erica doing her dissertation for a psychology major or something, losing us.
That's fine. We hit it, I mean, the outline gave me anxiety.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? But no, I think it's
this music.
I know, because I can't even hear you. I can't hear me. We're just trying to say whatever to fill in the space.
I can't hear my thoughts.